Welcome to On-Demand Learning with Michigan State University College of Nursing. This activity is part of the Help Pain series. This is part 3. This session is 0.25 contact hours of nursing continuing education credit. Michigan State University College of Nursing is accredited with distinction as a provider of nursing continuing professional development by ANCC. The learning outcome is that upon completion of this learning activity, participants will state increased knowledge, an example of how to provide guidance to caregivers who have a child dealing with pain by achieving 80% or greater on the post-session evaluation. Criteria to receive contact hours for this activity are to view the learning activity in its entirety, complete the post-session evaluation with a score of 80% or greater, and complete the survey following the post-session evaluation. At the end of the learning activity, scan the on-screen QR code with the phone camera to complete the post-session evaluation, survey, and payment if necessary. Following completion of the evaluation and payment if necessary, an electronic contact hour will be delivered to the email address that you provide.
Welcome to part 3 of a 4-part series on Help Pain, which involves cognitive and behavioral strategies for managing pediatric pain. The objectives are understanding how to give guidance to caregivers such as parents who have a child dealing with pain symptoms, applying cognitive and behavioral strategies to address pain in pediatric populations, and learn how to run a pain group for children experiencing chronic pain. Parents often have many questions about how to best support their child with chronic pain, and the advice can be somewhat counterintuitive compared to helping a child with acute pain or health symptoms. So it can be really important to partner with the family member, the parent, or other care provider tasked with caring for the child to review some of these strategies. The first is really encouraging a child to manage their pain independently. That means eliminating or really diminishing status checks when possible. Don't ask a child, hey, how is your pain? How's it doing now? How are you feeling? Because that actually just draws attention to the child's pain symptoms and can inadvertently make them feel worse. Instead, praise your child when you notice them using pain coping skills that they learn as part of this program. And really encourage normal activities. So going to school as much as is possible, even during a pain episode. Other examples of normal activities might be hanging out with friends, doing chores, or other sorts of social work or academic expectations. It's really important if we're going to encourage the child to be independent that we're also supporting them as needed. So it'll be important to communicate about possible school accommodations, which may include things such as a 504 plan. If pain does lead to a school absence, which does sometimes occur, we recommend parents treat this as if they would any other time the child experiences a serious illness. So really removing some of the distractions, if you can, removing screens, and just focus on resting and recovery. It's always important to also follow physician guidelines for medications. It might be helpful to consider a situation that can be challenging when supporting a child with chronic pain. So here's an example of what might be a tough situation. In this case, you may be reviewing parent guidelines with a child, let's call him Jacob, and his mom gets really upset and says, I feel like a bad mom if I don't check in with Jacob about his pain, and gaming is the only thing that distracts him. You might think a bit about what you might do in this scenario. I think some of the important things to consider are empathizing with mom, letting her know she's doing a great job, she loves and cares for her child, and really the goal of programs such as this is to augment the skills that Jacob has. So Gaming is something that distracts him, and that can be effective in some strategies and scenarios, but at school it may not be as effective of a strategy. So the purpose of learning these sorts of self-management techniques is to give him additional tools in his toolbox to help support his success. Another strategy that I commonly use with children who have chronic pain or anxiety or worries is a strategy called detective thinking. This is adapted from a protocol called Cool Kids, which focuses on helping a child with anxiety symptoms. Detective thinking allows the child to think like a detective to solve their problem. So, kind of similar to problem solving, a child might write down the event and thought that they have experienced. Then they look for evidence and they brainstorm all different types of evidence that supports or maybe confirms or disconfirms their thought. So this might include some alternative thoughts. After they go through this exercise, and I think it's helpful to have between 10 or so to 20 different types of pieces of evidence and alternative thoughts, to write down a new, more realistic thought to replace the worried thought. The other thing that is helpful to do when writing down the thought and the new thought is to rate how worried that makes a child feel from 0 to 10, where 0 is not at all worried and 10 is the most extreme worry. What we find is many times, even if a child's worry doesn't diminish completely, they're able to experience some reductions in anxiety using a strategy such as this. An example can really help bring a strategy such as detective thinking to life. So in this example, the child writes down, I worry I won't be able to hang out with my friends because of my pain symptoms, and then they won't want to be friends with me. And they rate this as an 8 out of 10 on the worry scale. So quite a bit of worry. Next, the provider or the child can independently start to generate some evidence. So this includes, my friends have stayed my friends for a long time. We can pick activities together that don't make my pain worse. I can use my coping skills to help me manage my pain. Maybe some of the alternatives include, my friends will still want to hang out with me even if I miss an event. I might need to sit out on some activities, but I can still hang out. Although not listed here, another thought or piece of evidence might be that one time they have lost a friend over time. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that those things happen and to kind of consider that in a broader picture of many different types of evidence. Oftentimes, kids with worries overestimate the more negative consequences of events. So they think the more negative consequence is more likely and is also likely to be really, really bad. Exercises like this can help normalize some of the possible outcomes of a scenario and can allow a child to generate a more realistic thought and replace that worried thought. If you have a child that struggles with this, you can also have them think to themselves, what would you tell a friend who had this sort of worry? And write down some of that data as well. So this child elects to write, I'll be able to use my coping skills and pick activities that don't increase my pain. And they re-rate their worry as a 4 out of 10. So they're still experiencing some worry, but it's quite diminished compared to how they started. So again, it helps if you have even more evidence pieces when using this strategy, but I think this nicely lays out an example of how this strategy can help a child reevaluate some distorted thinking they may be experiencing. Before a child uses this strategy for themselves, they may elect to practice on a strategy that we've prepared for them. So here's an example a child can walk through to practice the use of this skill. Casey has a pain flare. She ends up having to miss a day of school and does not turn in an important writing assignment. She's sure she's going to fail her class and her teacher will be mad. She's never going to get into Harvard now. So using a scenario such as this, a child can walk through the exercises from Casey's perspective before applying it to their own lives and situations. So to summarize this skill and how to utilize detective thinking, Help the child to formulate what is the event, what is your thought about the event, and rate how worried that thought makes you feel. Next, what is the evidence? What are the alternatives? What is a more realistic thought to replace the more worried thought? And what is the new worry rating associated with this thought? Another strategy I like to use with kids who have chronic pain is called pleasant activities or pleasant activity scheduling. Many kids with chronic pain stop doing things that they need to do, but also things they want to do and like to do because of their pain symptoms. So the idea behind this skill is to brainstorm with the child what are different types of activities that they find enjoyable. They may include things like playing piano or playing certain games. Some of the most powerful, pleasant activities involve being with other people and being physically active. So when coming up with a list with kids, I make sure to include several activities on that list that involve both social and physical activity. After we come up with a list of about 8 to 10 pleasant activities a child enjoys, we try to pick 1 to 2 activities for the child to do in a week. And again, making sure one of them is physical, social, or both. This can really help to improve a child's mood in spite of their pain symptoms. Another helpful strategy for pain management is called activity pacing. The idea behind this is many children with chronic pain either overdo or underdo different types of activities, both of which can lead to pain flares. So the idea behind activity pacing is to prevent pain flares by engaging in activities they both need and want to do, and building in different times to take rests or breaks where they can practice their pain coping strategies to allow them to stay engaged in the activities that they want to do while avoiding or removing the increased potential for a pain flare. Here are some examples of different activities that can be paced. It might include engaging in schoolwork or homework, eating, physical activities such as sports practice, and even other fun activities like going to recess or an amusement park, where sometimes kids tend to overdo it. The idea behind using activity pacing is to talk through a schedule with the child when they engage in these activities where they can build in periods to rest and recover and utilize some of their pain coping strategies to support them in achieving their goals. Pain management strategies can be delivered to a child individually or in a group setting. The next series of slides will talk about implementing help pain strategies in school settings using a group-based approach. After one school nurse received training in the Help Pain program, she reached out to me with an interest in creating a pain group at her school. We met together and collectively developed a manual for implementing a pain group. We created a script and handouts, and the school nurse ultimately led a 6-session weekly 45-minute group with her school counselor with 8 students in total, ranging in grades 4th through 6th. She did this during the lunch hour, and snacks and food were provided to the participating students. I engaged in biweekly consultation and support for the school nurse, who was also supported by the mental health specialists who had training in the foundational cognitive and behavioral strategies. The toolkit and the group manual are available for sharing. The following is an outline of the skills that were covered as part of this pain group. All of these skills and strategies are reviewed as part of this 4-part series. This is a link to our YouTube channel, which includes many educational videos that can be useful for training purposes or sharing with children who are managing chronic pain. Here are some examples of questions we commonly receive about help pain strategies. Can this be used for addressing specific pain complaints, such as headache or acute pain? Can you use other complementary strategies such as yoga or stretching? And what about teaching a child to self-soothe? These strategies are indeed applicable to specific pain conditions. So for example, headache or migraines These are very relevant skills, and some ways we might tailor them for a child with that specific pain complaint is we might do exercises that involve tensing and releasing of forehead muscles, encouraging communication of symptoms with a medical provider while assessing things that can impact headaches, such as healthy habits. That may include caffeine consumption, sleep hygiene, assessing for tension versus migraine symptoms, which often include things like visual disturbances, and again, really conveying the importance of communicating such symptoms to medical providers in case additional rule-out testing is needed, and also kind of assessing for medication overuse patterns. Yoga is in fact a great complement to the pain management skills taught as part of Help Pain and can be helpful for pain management as well. Lastly, our videos and online tools can be used to promote a child to use self-management strategies as they progress in this program. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and contact me at any time. My contact information is listed here. I'm Natasha Cunningham, and it's a pleasure to have presented this information to you. These are some of the references used in formatting this presentation.
Thank you for joining this professional development continuing education activity. Please use the below QR code to scan it with your phone or click on the provided link. Your continuing education certificate will be provided electronically with the email used within the survey completion following a successful pass of the post-test of 80% and submission of a completed survey. Thank you again for joining this education.